demands an answer that cuts through the fake smiles and curated drama of A&E, exposing the brutal, hidden reality of the legal and personal chaos that fundamentally forced Brandi Passani to disappear from storage wars. She became the undeniable queen of the storage auction world, celebrated for her sharp wit, infectious energy, and fierce bargaining skills alongside her longtime partner, Jared Schultz. However, the cheerful veneer of televised rivalry shielded a catastrophic personal struggle, a relentless erosion of her private life due to public scrutiny, legal entanglements, and a shattering separation that ripped the very foundation of her professional identity to shreds. We are not just discussing a career change. We are revealing the names of the individuals and the timeline of events, from the toxic split to the agonizing domestic legal battles, that ultimately made her highly public presence in the storage world completely unsustainable. We will dive deep into the harrowing details of the constant legal threats, the shocking revelations of her post-show existence, and the agonizing truth about the emotional toll the cameras took on her role as a mother, compelling her to choose between the spotlight and her fundamental right to peace. This is a definitive, unvarnished chronicle of the high price of reality fame, providing stark evidence that for even the most resilient television personalities, the biggest threat is often not the competition, but the disintegration of the life they try desperately to hide from the cameras. Before we cast a light on this dark, concealed personal tragedy, I insist you crush that like button on this video right now, because your single click is a vital engagement metric that signals to the YouTube algorithm that this unprecedented investigation is critical and that the audience demands a complete and censored truth behind their biggest cultural icons. If you feel compelled to support our research further, please utilize the Super Thanks feature located directly below to fund our next major investigation. But if that's not possible, simply comment below and tell us which part of Brandi's hidden struggle you predict is the darkest. You absolutely cannot look away for a single second of this expose, because the final, staggering revelation concerning her financial situation and the absolute cost of her peace will completely and utterly floor you. The saga of Brandi Passani, an unlikely reality television icon whose infectious authenticity captivated millions on Storage Wars, is a narrative characterized by an astonishing rise to fame and a tragic, almost obligatory withdrawal dictated by the relentless pressures of a life lived perpetually in the media's harsh glare. Born in 1980 in the heart of the reality television boom, Brandi quickly transcended her initial role as simply the partner of auctioneer Jared Schultz. She evolved into a star in her own right, a sharp, relatable, and fiercely competitive presence who brought much-needed energy and authenticity to the often staged chaos of the storage unit auctions. Her initial public identity was fundamentally intertwined with the volatile dynamic she shared with Jared. Their relationship was central to the early success and humor of the show, focusing on their endless financial squabbles, their competitive banter, and their joint operation of the now and then second-hand store in Orange County. This duality, the on-screen spectacle versus the reality of their struggling small business, provided a compelling, if often deeply exhausting, narrative engine for the series. However, the core identity of the show, which relied heavily on the stable, if antagonistic, pairing of Brandi and Jared, was always fundamentally fragile. Unbeknownst to the vast viewing public, the relentless stress of being filmed constantly, coupled with the inherent financial instability of their auction venture, placed an intolerable strain on their private, long-term commitment. This tension was masterfully hidden by the show's editing, creating a false public narrative of a couple who, despite their squabbles, were an unshakable team. Yet, the foundational crack that would eventually shatter Brandi's career and necessitate her disappearance was the slow, agonizing, and highly contested dissolution of her partnership with Jared Schultz. This separation, which began subtly and escalated violently behind closed doors, could not be contained by the network's carefully constructed reality bubble. It was a crucial turning point, the emotional and financial anchor tearing loose, which made her continued participation on the show, especially alongside her former partner, a logistical, emotional, and eventually legal impossibility. The show attempted a clumsy course correction, revealing in a heavily edited moment that the couple had actually been separated for 2 years, an astonishing revelation that demonstrated the extreme lengths the production had gone to preserve the illusion, a deception that only highlighted the enormous personal sacrifices Brandi had been making to maintain her contract. The moment of absolute public fracture occurred sharply around the year 2020, and it centered tragically on the complete dissolution of the personal and business relationship between Brandi and Jared. When the separation was officially confirmed, Brandi initially attempted to carve out a viable, independent narrative on Storage Wars, briefly returning to the series as a solo bidder. This move was a desperate, courageous attempt to reclaim her professional identity and income stream, proving that her success was her own, not derivative of the partnership. However, this independent path quickly became fraught with unbearable stress, mainly due to the constant on-set tension and the legal proximity she was forced to maintain with her increasingly volatile ex-partner. The ultimate catastrophic trigger that forced her disappearance was severe, shocking domestic disturbance and legal confrontation. In 2020, Jared Schultz was arrested and charged with domestic battery following an altercation in an Orange County bar. The reports indicated he allegedly pushed Brandi twice after an argument. While the criminal charges were later dismissed, the damage to Brandi's professional viability, personal safety, and emotional well-being was absolute. This legal filing instantly transformed her co-star into a direct legal and personal threat. Suddenly, Brandi was not simply a TV personality. She was a victim in a highly publicized domestic incident, forcing her private turmoil into the same spotlight that paid her wages. The network and production companies, faced with the enormous liability and the guaranteed negative press of having a charged individual constantly interacting with the alleged victim on set, found Brandi's continued participation under these strained, hostile, and legally dangerous conditions to be wholly untenable. Insiders confirmed that the network quietly but firmly began to phase out her presence, realizing that the chaotic reality of her life was now too volatile even for reality television, leading to her slow but definite withdrawal from the core cast. During the intense pressure cooker of the separation and legal fallout, Brandi's infrequent public statements were marked by a clear, defiant attempt to reclaim her privacy and assert her independence. One of her most telling assertions was her repeated emphasis on her fundamental need to protect her children from the corrosive glare of the cameras and the media storm surrounding her ex-partner. This declaration served as a strategic, deeply emotional narrative that justified her retreat, casting her not as a failed star, but as a devoted mother prioritizing the safety and stability of her family. The immense psychological and financial toll of this period was compounded by a severe, unexpected personal reckoning. She faced a stark loss of income as her reliable Storage Wars paycheck diminished, forcing her into a desperate, private battle to reestablish her financial footing. The stability of her life, once anchored to the shared identity and income stream with Jared, was abruptly destabilized, pushing her to focus entirely on her online presence and small, independent business ventures outside the high-risk reality television bubble. She was vocal about the profound exhaustion caused by the necessity of always being on, a requirement that felt particularly cruel when her private life was falling apart. She retreated almost entirely from the limelight, utilizing her social media to share glimpses of her new life, a life noticeably devoid of the chaos and high-stakes financial stress of the auctions. This was less a retirement and more a necessary strategic retreat to stabilize her emotional and financial health, necessitated by the failure of the partnership and the public legal threats. The most profound realization that accompanied her disappearance was the bitter understanding that her obligatory return to any form of public life was now motivated less by the simple joy of performance and more by the cold, crushing financial necessity of immediate, independent capital generation. Her career became an existential fight to sever all ties, both professional and financial, with her former partner, demanding a complete reinvention of her public and private economic structure. Today, the true status of Brandi Passani is reflected in the carefully guarded, deliberate pace of her professional life. She has returned to the show, but under a dramatically different structure. Her appearances are sporadic, strategically controlled, and never directly involve Jared Schultz, a clear, unmistakable piece of evidence that the foundational legal and emotional boundaries she fought for have been successfully enforced. While her core company has moved far away from the shared storefront with Jared, and she has managed to rebuild her personal finances, the deliberate nature of her limited public schedule speaks volumes about a continuous, high demand for self-protection and boundary enforcement. The most crucial, subtle, and perhaps most poignant revelation about her state today comes from her own social media presence. She consistently claims she has fundamentally reprioritized her life, placing simple free time, personal authenticity, and her children's well-being above the relentless pursuit of television fame. Yet, the harsh, contradictory truth remains that she maintains just enough of a public profile to secure independent financial stability, a relentless pace that stands as silent, incontrovertible proof that the ultimate, enduring cost of her public collapse was not merely financial, but complete, devastating exhaustion of her right to a normal, private life. She did, miraculously, manage to save her personal peace and her identity from the ruins of her partnership, but the enduring, suffocating shadow of the public exposure and the subsequent legal threats remain the single, unyielding reason why the resilient queen of the auctions simply cannot afford to step fully away from the camera, consigning her to a life defined by cautious, necessary public appearances, until perhaps finally she earns the peace she deserves. And so, we arrive at the final, heartbreaking note of this investigation. The story of Brandi Passani is not just about a magnificent rise on reality TV, but crucial, cautionary tale of shattered partnership, a secret legal storm, and a domestic incident that ultimately forced the queen of the auctions to choose between her fame and her personal safety. She won the public's heart and became an icon, but ultimately, she lost the battle for her privacy. Her careful, limited return to television today is a silent, living proof that the cost of that public and legal separation was not merely emotional. It was a permanent, devastating tax on her time, her right to a normal existence, and her peace of mind as a mother. If this deep dive into the shocking personal treachery and the immense private sacrifices of Brandi Passani left you stunned and impacted, then please hit the like button right now. Your like is the single most important action you can take, and it's the critical signal that tells the YouTube algorithm this untold story matters, aggressively pushing the truth past the sensationalist headlines. And you absolutely must subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. Don't allow the network machine to keep hiding the full truth about the lives of your favorite reality stars again. Your subscription is the key to our continued investigative independence. If you feel inspired to support us even further, use the Super Thanks feature located directly below this video and help us fund our next major expose. Now, it's your turn to be the judge of this tragedy. Head down immediately to the comments section and tell me, do you fundamentally believe Brandi's forced disappearance was an inevitable consequence of mixing her private relationship with reality TV fame, or was she truly a victim of poor network protection and a ruthless ex-partner? I am eager to read your definitive verdict, but do not navigate away just yet. If you thought the end of Brandi's partnership was shocking and revealing, wait until you see the next video. Click on the screen right now for a story about a reality star's life that imploded into a scandal even more mind-blowing, far more legally fraught, and contains a much more devastating, heartbreaking final twist than the story of Brandi Passani. Click here. You absolutely won't believe your eyes.